Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're peeling back the layers of a truly unsettling source stack. It's a narrative that suggests the stories we write, especially the ones that come from our deepest pain.
Yeah.
They can become literal blueprints for disaster in the real world.
That's exactly right. We are diving into a story where the boundary between, say, literary invention and this terrifying immediate reality,
Yeah.
it doesn't just blur.
No.
It shatters. It just breaks entirely.
And our focus is on two writers. First, Timothy Underhill, who is a man just haunted by this unresolvable grief.
And then there's Willy Patrick, a very successful novelist whose life, which looks perfect on the outside, is actually a highly unstable work of fiction.
So our mission is to follow the paper trail of this catastrophic literary error.
A mistake.
A huge mistake that Tim meant in his book, and it causes this violent metaphysical disruption.
It's a disruption that literally pulls Willy out of her world and into his. And it forces them both to confront this hidden cosmology and, the terrifying physical consequences of a lie printed on a page.
It's an investigation into chaos, into trauma, and the just. The astonishing, demanding price of trying to give a fictional character a better fate than their real-life counterpart ever got.
In that collision, when it starts, it doesn't start with a bang.
Not at all. It starts with a ruined breakfast. It's a rainy September morning around 9:45 a.m., and the novelist, Timothy Underhill, he's just struggling to function.
And then 4 cryptic, really disjointed emails land in his inbox.
These aren't junk mail. Not at all.
No. These messages, they're from 4 different senders, apparently, and they're written in these little fragments that when Tim pieces them together, they form this one chilling sentence.
There was no helo, no time. Let's just pause on that phrase for a second. Tim, being a writer, he immediately puts on his editor hat.
Of course.
He tries to rationalize it. He thinks, okay, hello is just a typo for help.
Right. So remember, there was no help, no time.
Exactly. Which is, morbid. It's depressing. But it's a narrative he can sort of control. He tries to just file it away as some weird spam.
But the reality he's living in is already way too frayed for that kind of rational explanation. Moments later, the physical world just catches up to the digital weirdness.
He steps outside the Fireside Diner and has this street-side hallucination, and it is so vivid, it just burns itself into his memory.
The apparition is his older sister, April, who was murdered years ago. And she appears exactly as she was on that day.
9 years old, wearing her beloved blue and white Alice in Wonderland dress.
And she's soaking wet, completely out of place on the street.
Yeah.
And she is just glaring at him from across the road.
The detail of that dress, it's so telling, because April is this symbol of lost innocence, but she's also adored to this nonsensical, chaotic world.
And she's not a passive ghost either. She actively corrects his initial misremembering of the situation by screaming a command at him. A very clear, explicit command right before she vanishes.
And that command leaves Tim physically shaken. It was, listen to us. Listen to us, plural. Yes. So this isn't some gentle memory or a sad ghost. This is a guide or maybe even a warden who is demanding that Tim pay attention.
Demanding he recognize that his actions, his writing, has consequences that go far, far beyond the book jacket.
It establishes right away that Tim isn't just experiencing grief. He is directly connected to these realms of the dead, and they are now using that connection to demand a correction.
Okay, so let's unpack Timothy Underhill's history here, and specifically his unique spiritual vulnerability.
Right. His life is really defined by 2 profound, unhealed tragedies. First, the murder of his sister, April.
And then, more recently, the disappearance of his nephew, Mark.
And the sources, they make it terrifyingly clear how transformative April's death really was for him.
It wasn't just that she was murdered.
Yeah.
When it happened, Tim, who was just a child, he rushed toward the scene and was mowed down by a car himself.
He wasn't just physically injured. The sources say his consciousness literally left his body.
Yeah. He describes it as following April into a realm where darkness and light inhabited the same dazzling space.
He was pulled right out of life. But then, he says he was yanked back, inexplicably by an unexpected cord, right back into his mutilated body.
And this is the critical point. He notes that this near-death experience, this return from the threshold, that's when his education really took off.
And we should not interpret that as a literary education.
No, not at all. This is a metaphysical education. His perception of reality was just permanently altered. It maybe made him acutely sensitive to communications and the inhabitants of these eternal realms.
He became essentially an unintended channel.
And he used that channel whether he knew it or not, when he was dealing with the second great loss in his life, his nephew, Mark, disappearing.
That profound grief, it fueled his novel, Lost Boy, Lost Girl. It was published not long after it happened.
And this novel, it wasn't just therapy for him. It was an act of imaginative defiance. He created a fictional escape for Mark.
He granted him a better fate than the one likely intended by this monster, this man named Ronald Lloyd Jones.
And in the book, in this literary construct, Mark escapes into a place called an elsewhere, and he's accompanied by a phantom girl named Lucy Cleveland.
Now, Lucy Cleveland was based on a real-world tragedy. A girl named Lily Callender, who Tim suspected was killed when she was 5 or 6 by her abusive father, Joseph Callender.
So Tim, he intervenes with his art. He uses his book to rescue both Mark and this fictionalized version of Lily, and he places them safely beyond the reach of this dark man.
And that creative intervention, that is exactly what triggers this whole crisis.
Exactly. Tim's fiction, which he intended to provide comfort and closure, it becomes this point of violent collision with the actual metaphysical rules of the cosmos.
And the first physical manifestation of that cosmic pushback is a character named Jasper Dan Cole.
Oh, Cole is something else.
He's the one who initiates the confrontation. At first, he just seems like this youthful, overly enthusiastic fan who demands 7 signed copies of the book.
But this fan very quickly transforms into a critic, and then into an agent of destruction.
He introduces this truly bizarre philosophy. He calls it the real book theory.
Yeah, he tells Tim that authors usually screw up the book they intended to write, either because of haste or error or just distraction.
And he claims that every time a book runs through the presses, only, 2, 3 copies of the real book come out?
I find this concept absolutely fascinating. It's this literary metaphysical critique of imperfection.
Right. These real books are the perfect versions. They're unflawed. They contain exactly what the author wanted to write in its highest, purest form.
And collectors like Cole hunt for them, not just for money, but for the ultimate insight they offer.
In this whole theory, it's a direct assault on Tim's integrity as an author. Cole accuses authors of being lazy, irresponsible gods.
And basically deaf and blind for not paying attention to the perfection they briefly glimpsed. He's essentially criticizing Tim for letting his work be this flawed representation of the ideal.
And the interaction, it gets terrifyingly visceral.
It really does. Tim watches as Cole's appearance literally darkens during their conversation.
He ages right before his eyes.
Yeah, he transforms from this innocent-looking fan into an implacable ex-con. His face suddenly etched with the lines of brutal triumphs and bitter defeats.
That transformation confirms it. Coley's way more than a collector. He's a vessel.
And that vessel's rage is aimed directly at the flawed text. The whole thing culminates when Coley breaks into Tim's loft.
He vandalizes a copy of Lost Boy, Lost Girl, rips it apart, urinates on it,
and leaves behind this shocking symbolic odor of tiger piss.
Tiger piss. I mean, it's such a primal territorial marker.
It is. It's the ultimate insult to the physical artifact of the book. It's like he's saying, this book is defiled and I am marking my territory over your error.
While this is happening, the physical confrontation, the digital threat, is also escalating.
Right. Tim finally realizes the email senders. Their names are the names of dead people.
Specifically, dead high school classmates and a deceased Vietnam comrade.
The connections are just wildly personal. They span decades of Tim's life.
We've got figures from high school like Bill Byrne, who is nicknamed Pansy and queer.
And he died of a massive heart attack after someone tried to shoot him but missed. It was this chaotic death that wasn't even caused by the intended violence.
And there are others. Les Rutter, killed in a car crash on 9/11.
Lou Mayer, who drowned in a sailing accident. Mike Ryan, who died in Ireland. And then there's the horrific story of Private Philip Footler, Foro.
A Vietnam comrade who was literally machine-gunned and cut in half.
What's so significant is that the only common denominator connecting this bizarre assembly of the dead from, high school bullies to wartime casualties is Tim Underhill himself.
He calls Chester Finnegan the Holy Sepulchre class secretary for life.
Of course he does.
Who, with this disturbing efficiency, confirms every strange detail of their deaths, which cements the fact that these are verifiable ghosts from Tim's verifiable past.
And the orchestrator behind the emails is someone named Cyrax.
And Cyrax is not in the class database. He's a level 4 spirit who just appoints himself as Tim's guide.
And he communicates using this strange, pseudo-juvenile HX XOR language. like a hacker from the late 90s.
It's bizarre, but the message underneath is absolutely chilling. Cyrax wastes no time telling Tim that his reckless, ignorant authorship has caused difficulty and trouble in the Eternal Realms.
And crucially, that it has created a wedge to chaos.
This isn't just about a bad review anymore.
No, this is about existential fallout. It sets the stage perfectly. Tim has inadvertently pulled something out of the realm and into his reality, and Cyrax is the only one who can explain the rules of engagement.
Okay, now we have to make a pretty demanding transition. We have to move from Tim's mystical descent into the realms to, well, what feels like a grounded, high-stakes corporate thriller.
Starring Willy Patrick, yeah.
She lives in a world of success. She's a celebrated YA novelist. She won the Newbery Medal for her book In the Night Room, and she's engaged to this wealthy and very protective man, Mitchell Faber.
And Willy desperately needs that sense of protection. Her life has been scarred by the devastating loss of her daughter, Holly, and her husband, Jim Patrick.
So she sees her connection with Mitchell Faber as erecting a protective realm around herself.
She had retreated into her writing as a form of therapy, a way to build a shield against the world's unpredictable cruelty.
It's poignant that even her memories are structured by this mix of pain and fiction. She remembers her daughter, Holly, calling herself Howie.
Which links back to a childhood hero she called Little Howie Small. She also admits to having a total blackout of her early childhood, from birth to age 6.
And all she has from that time is this tiny stabilizing thread, a shimmer of warmth.
A shimmer of warmth that she says prevents her from succumbing entirely to despair.
And that memory blackout, that shimmer, that's our first real hint that her reality is highly curated.
A coping mechanism, maybe, or perhaps something that was deliberately constructed around her trauma.
And her protector, Mitchell Faber, is very quickly revealed to be deeply controlling and fundamentally dishonest.
He's involved with a powerful, shadowy organization known as the Baltic Group.
And Mitchell enforces these mystifying, highly specific rules about his home office.
Oh, the rules! He forbids Willy from entering for 3 reasons. 1, he doesn't want her moving his papers.
Disorder.
2, he doesn't want the distraction of women.
And 3, he needs a single occupancy foxhole for his privacy so he doesn't become irritable.
I mean, these rules are almost laughably sexist and dictatorial.
And Willy is just supposed to accept them as a sign of his eccentric, powerful genius. But they are huge red flags. They establish a deep power imbalance.
And the clear sense that Faber has secrets that must remain absolutely private.
And he's not alone. He is flanked by these constantly watchful agents.
Giles Coverley, the impeccably dressed, elegant assistant.
And Roman Richard Spilka, who's the muscle. A heavier, thug-like figure who just projects menace.
You feel less like staff and more like guards.
The conspiracy really starts to solidify when Mitchell travels. He leaves a voicemail about his trip. He mentions Nanterre near Paris, maybe Toledo, Spain.
And the message is peppered with these annoying, dictatorial interrogatives. Okay, Willy, hear me.
It's like he's demanding confirmation of her subservience, even from across the Atlantic.
But Willy is starting to crack. On a whim, she calls the Paris hotel he claimed to be at the Hotel Mercure Paris La Défense Park.
And the clerk confirms he checked out nearly 7 hours earlier.
Which directly contradicts his message.
Right.
This is the moment Willy realizes her reality, that protective realm built by Mitchell. It's a fundamental lie.
And that lie triggers a massive psychological and physical breakdown. Willy begins to experience these unexplained memory lapses.
And the terrifying phenomenon of missing time.
She remembers going to a museum and only being able to clearly see 3 paintings, a Monet haystack, Rouen Cathedral, and a Corot.
As if the rest of reality was just fuzzy daubs. And then came the blackout. The missing hours felt as though they had been carved from her body, she notes.
Her writer friend, Tom Hartland, he tries to wave it away as stress-related amnesia because of the wedding.
Which is a rational explanation.
But Willy herself knows she's drifting along. She feels less like a person and more like a passenger, letting other people tell her what to do.
Tom, however, provides the concrete warning that grounds this whole story in a terrifying political reality. He warns her about the Baltic Group.
He describes it as a vast, multifarious development company tied to governments all over the globe, staffed by ex-ministers, ex-generals, high-level operatives.
Tom calls the Baltic Group his personal definition of evil.
He says they interfere in global politics, they buy cooperation, they deal exclusively in dirty deals.
This isn't just a shadowy firm. This is a global economic and political cabal that operates completely outside any ethical bounds.
He even speculates that her first husband, Jim Patrick, might have been murdered because of a connection to Baltic.
And that is a terrifying idea, that completely shatters Willy's reliance on Mitchell as a protective force.
It leads her to realize she might be marrying the enemy.
And the horror immediately becomes physical. A massive storm crashes through the window of Mitchell's forbidden office, finally allowing Willy to get inside.
She starts picking up scattered documents, and beneath a carved wooden box, she finds scattered photographs.
And those photographs are of dead people.
Yeah.
And it culminates in this horrifying picture of her first husband, Jim Patrick.
He was shot to death, but the source emphasizes a brutal, specific mutilation.
His hands were cut off.
This confirms that Mitchell isn't just a controlling liar. He is connected to extreme ritualistic violence.
So Willy realizes she has to flee. Immediately. She tries to get money from her accounts, only to discover Mitchell has already had her transfer most of her wealth to a local bank.
The banker, a Mr. Bender, admits he accepted a forged signature because he was terrified of Mitchell.
And Willy only manages to extract a mere $100,000 in cash.
Her escape is short-lived. Giles Coverley and Roman Richard catch up to her at the bank.
In a desperate act, Willy bumps them with her car. It's not a major collision, but a specific, localized act of rebellion.
And it results in Roman Richard getting a broken arm and a plaster cast.
She gets away, but she feels a horrible, reeking cloud of villainy surrounding her. What's crucial here is that Willy, the successful, stable author, is now a desperate, amnesiac fugitive.
Which confirms that her life, her success, it was all entirely dependent on the man who is now revealed to be a monster. Her protective realm has become her prison.
Okay, let's go back to Tim, our other protagonist.
Yeah.
Because we need Cyrax to give us the cosmology. We needed to understand what connects Tim's ghost world to Willy's corporate nightmare.
Right. Cyrax finally sends Tim this detailed, elaborate email that just lays out all the rules of the realm.
And what a guide he is. Cyrax is a fascinating character in his own right.
He identifies himself as a former gossip columnist and journalist born in Byzantium during the reign of Michael II.
And he died under Michael III. So he's been dead for well over 1,000 years.
He's a level 4 spirit now, fluent in hundreds of languages, and he uses that mock juvenile HXXX or R language just for fun.
To put Tim at ease a little bit, he's a cosmic journalist still collecting stories.
And he immediately dives into the structure of the realms and the Great Hierarchy, explaining the classification system they use, which is derived from the Kiswahili peoples.
This is where we learn the true nature of the dead.
First, we have the Sasha.
Right. These are the living dead. They're the newly departed who still have sharp memories, urgent lusts, burning passions.
And crucially, they are still actively remembered by the living.
And when the last living person who knew a Sasha dies, that Sasha then transitions to the second, deeper level.
Which is the Zamani.
Zamani are those who have shed those temporal passions and memories. Their purpose is to seek understanding of the great hierarchy and to serve the prime.
It's a cosmology that avoids the traditional idea of hell.
Cyrax confirms there is no actual hell, but there is immense suffering. Wicked Sasha, those whose lives were defined by malice, they endure a profound suffering of recognition in their old specific places.
Their crimes and misdeeds just return to them endlessly, cleansing their eyes.
So it's suffering not for eternal damnation, but for necessary self-recognition.
So we have a system where identity, memory, and recognition are the currency. And now Cyrax connects this system to authorship by introducing the realm's great libraries.
And these libraries contain every single volume ever written by mankind, but in a very unique way.
They contain the works in their perfect state.
Which means they are completed if left unfinished by the author, and they're completely unflawed by human error or corruption or haste.
This is the core concept. The perfect book as a metaphysical object. The book Tim intended to write exists there, flawless.
But that perfection, ironically, is what made it so dangerous when a particular Sasha encountered it.
And the Sasha who stumbled upon this perfect version of Lost Boy, Lost Girl was Joseph Callender, Lily Cleveland's real father.
He was wandering, dazed, and enraged, and upon reading the book in the library, he saw the error in your book and ran on trick.
This is such a devastating insight into the power of fiction. The error was this explicit, libelous accusation Tim had written.
His book falsely accused Joseph Callender of repeatedly raping and eventually murdering his daughter, Lily.
Callender's rage, which was powerful enough to cause a wedge to chaos, stems from the absolute truth that he did not do.
He was abusive, yes.
Yeah.
He kept her hidden. But he had granted her this bizarre mercy and let her live.
Tim's fiction was accurate about the abuse, but catastrophically wrong about the murder.
So by recording a fundamental lie in the eternal library, this repository of truth and potential, Kim created a tear in the fabric of reality. He insulted a powerful Sasha and defaced the errant book.
Which is why Calendar, as Cole, vandalized Tim's physical book with tiger piss.
But the danger is doubled, as Cyrax explains. Tim had created a second dark man by merging Joseph Calendar with another dark villain in his novel.
And the second entity is now physically manifested and actively pursuing the lovely gamine.
Willy.
So Mitchell Faber is a fusion.
He's the monstrous controlling corporate executive, but he is also Joseph Calendar, the enraged, libel-defamed father. Both entities coalescing into a single, highly motivated antagonist in the physical world.
And Cyrax delivers Tim's ultimate terrifying task. Tim must correct an error.
To do this, he has to travel to his own Byzantium, Millhaven, Illinois, and find the true, non-fictional fate of Lily Calendar.
His ghostly sister, April, the tender ghost, she'll act as his guide. But Cyrax warns that April cannot fight Calendar.
Because they are of the same kind. They are both entities bound by grief and the realm.
This completely reframes the whole narrative. Tim is not just solving a mystery. He's undertaking a desperate, mandated pilgrimage to repair the damage his own imagination caused.
And he has to use his fictional creation, Willy, as the necessary tool to do it.
So, with Cyrax's instructions ringing in his ears, Tim attends a book reading in New York.
And this is where the two storylines just violently converge.
Willy Patrick, still reeling from the murder of her friend Tom Hartland and fleeing Faber's men, she tracks Tim down at the Barnes & Noble on Broadway.
When Kim sees her, the shock is immediate and profound. He recognizes her instantly as his fictional character, Willy Bryce Patrick.
He's terrified. He sees her and she's drenched. She's covered in this watercolor abstract red pattern,
which is Tom Hartland's blood, soaked and diluted by the rain.
It confirms the visceral connection. Willy's fictional journey has spilled out into real-world violence. Tim realizes Tom Hartland was shot by Roman Richard.
It validates the brutality of the dark man's physical agents.
And Willy, she recognizes a kindred spirit in Tim. She confesses this profound alienation she's feeling.
She tells him she feels like a marionette or a puppet, compelled to perform actions like almost breaking into a warehouse after hearing her daughter's ghostly screams that she wouldn't normally choose.
She says she feels like her actions have been entirely scripted.
And Tim's response is just.
Yeah.
It's filled with this terrifying self-awareness. He realizes he's been living with Willy for months through the creation of his novel.
When she admits she reads his books when she's depressed, he just wryly calls himself literary Zoloft.
Wait, let's drill down on that. Is he saying he created her life out of thin air? Or is he saying that by writing about her, he was sort of tuning into a nascent reality?
A protective parallel life that she needed to survive.
It seems like the latter. The sources suggest he didn't invent Lily Calendar, but rather the persona of Willy Patrick.
Giving that persona a successful, stable reality, a fictional life that shielded the traumatic core of the real Lily.
And this convergence, it leads to what's described as the first miracle. Tim puts his arms around Willy.
And despite Tim being openly gay, they share this intense physical intimacy. It's described as extraordinary.
Willy feels this intense non-sexual pleasure and peace, just absorbing calm and warmth from his body.
It's like Zeus coming down in a shower of gold, she says. She's absorbing the stability that Tim represents.
It's almost a functional restorative intimacy. It's the literal merging of the author and his creation, transferring necessary strength for the task ahead.
But that stabilization is tenuous at best.
The mystery just compounds when Willy reveals her lightness condition, this constant feeling of being hollow or possibly dissolving.
And to stave off this terrifying hollowing, she has to consume continuous amounts of sugar and chocolate.
I mean, she goes so far as to guzzle confectioner's sugar straight from the box with Coca-Cola.
This is a physical symptom of her dimensional crossing. She is a fictional construct in a real world, and the reality she's in is literally trying to dissolve her.
The sugar consumption seems to be this desperate biological effort to maintain mass and stability.
And the physical proof of her instability manifests very quickly.
Willy realizes the blood spatter from Tom Hartland's murder has completely disappeared from her shirt.
As if the stain never existed. And on top of that, she reveals a specific injury. A phantom transparency in her hand where she can see right through the top of her right hand.
The fading bloodstain, the transparent hand, it all proves she's transient. She has crossed a barrier, and she may not be built to last in this reality.
As they hit the road, heading toward Millhaven, The crucial connection that Tim missed is made by Willy.
The character who only exists because of the narrative.
Right. She realizes that Jasper Dan Cole is an anagram for Joseph Calendar.
And that's the moment where the fictional pursuit becomes deeply personal and highly specific. It confirms that the dark man hunting her is not just some generic villain.
He is the enraged, libeled father seeking correction for the book's error.
The chase continues, though. Giles Coverley and Roman Richard Spilka pursue them, but they too are suffering the effects of this reality shift.
They look pinched and washed out.
It suggests they're also losing mass or stability as agents of the Sasha.
And the reality warping just increases during a confrontation. When they're cornered, Tim grabs Roman Richard's gun.
And Roman Richard vanishes when he's shot, and Giles Coverley starts to flicker and partially disappear.
It's the definitive visual. The agents of the antagonist are dissolving when confronted with force, or when their narrative purpose is interrupted.
And Willy immediately understands the physics of this transition. She notes that Giles's disappearance could be stopped temporarily with chocolate.
More proof that sugar, or mass, is necessary to stabilize entities caught in this dimensional flux.
She's literally carrying the knowledge of how to sustain reality in her emergency chocolate supply.
So Tim and Willy arrive in Millhaven, which is Tim's Byzantium. It's the only place the error can be corrected.
They check into the Pforzheimer Hotel, and Tim plugs in Mark's laptop, which he believes is imbued with memory and connection.
And Cyrax immediately appears with a solemn, brutal message.
Tim must pay the dreadful price and sacrifice of the being unmade.
That sacrifice is Willy, and Tim knows he can't postpone telling her the whole terrifying truth any longer.
And the moment is catalyzed by their inability to find Willy's fictional hometown, Mill Basin, or her therapist, Dr. Ballas, in this universe's atlases.
They just do not exist in Millhaven, Illinois.
So Tim is forced to reveal it all. That Willy Patrick, the Newbery winner, the woman with the loving parents and the successful life, she's a construct.
She is the protective shield he wrote for the true, deeply traumatized person.
And the darkest truth is the origin of that shimmer of warmth, that memory of a loving childhood. It's a fantasy.
Her real name is Lily Calendar, and her early life was defined by trauma and abuse.
She couldn't pronounce her own name, Lily, or the name of her fictionalized daughter, Holly. She called herself Waiwi, and her hero was Little Howie Small.
That pronunciation, Waiwi, that is the exact point where Tim's imagination latched onto her true identity and transformed it into the fictional, successful Willy Patrick.
And Willy accepts her fate with this extraordinary bravery. She realizes she was created to be the fictional hero who walks into the real night room.
Joseph Calendar's house at 3323 North Michigan Street.
To correct the error, Tim wrote, she says she is just passing through. Her purpose is not to survive, but to complete the narrative correction.
But before the final sacrifice, they have to establish the factual, non-fictional truth about Lily Calendar.
They visit the Millhaven Foundlings Shelter and meet matron Mercedes Romola.
And Romola connects them with Diane Huntress, the woman who eventually took Lily in.
And Diane describes a child of immense damage who slowly began to heal through reading. She describes Lily's healing process as being like Scheherazade, telling stories to literally save her own life.
And here is the profound contrast. The true Lily Calendar became Lily Huntress, MD, a brilliant, successful pediatrician in Millhaven.
She helps children. She channels her trauma into healing others. But the matron emphasizes that Dr. Huntress still struggles with the pain.
She sometimes locks herself away and will never marry or write a book.
The fictional Willy Patrick was given the Newbery Medal and the chance at a loving marriage. The real Lily Huntress found success through service, but at the cost of profound emotional isolation.
This confirms the truth. Calendar was abusive, but he did not murder her. His bizarre mercy letting her live cost Lily Huntress her normal life, but ultimately led to a remarkable, if lonely, professional success.
And now, the final confrontation.
Tim and Willy drive to 3323 North Michigan Street. April, the ghost guide, appears behind the house, signaling Calendar's presence.
Tim enters the house, and it smells powerfully of death and abandonment.
He enters a living room, and the chaos just materializes. A huge bowl of black particles disperses, and Joseph Calendar materializes.
And in the next horrifying instant, Calendar condenses into Mitchell Faber. The two dark men merge into a single, cohesive entity.
And Faber Calendar demands justice from Tim. He doesn't want his reputation restored to innocence. He knows he was abusive and earned his damnation as a Sasha.
He demands Kim make amends by doing justice to my case.
By writing a new book, a biography of Joseph Calendar.
This is a magnificent demand. Calendar wants the complex, monstrous truth recorded.
He doesn't want the simple, libelous lie, nor the idealized happy ending. He wants the difficult, nuanced biography of the monster who still loved his daughter enough to let her live.
The confrontation is interrupted by the final intervention, this powerful, cosmic entity named WCHWHLLDN, the Clarisite Angel or Guardian.
Cyrax had warned Tim that this entity might destroy Tim as well, since it's a pure force of cosmic order that punishes interference.
And the angel's attack is described physically. A wire writhing and thrashing like a captured snake, forcing Tim out of the house, battered, possibly with a broken arm.
And Willy, the fictional sacrifice, has vanished inside to face her fate and close the wedge.
The narrative concludes days later at the wedding of Tim's brother Philip. And Philip is completely transformed, trimmer, friendlier, happily born again.
He loans Tim Mark's computer. The world feels slightly less fractured.
And the complicated hope of the ending is captured by Philip's born-again wife, China, who quotes Willy, carrying this philosophical nugget out of the chaos.
I love my God too, but I wish he didn't need it so much.
Which is a profound philosophical statement about the demands of the creator, which Willy was uniquely positioned to understand.
So, if we look back at this whole journey, what are the central takeaways we've gathered from the realms of Tim Underhill and Willy Patrick?
Well, first, the devastating consequence of a writer's imagination. Tim's attempt to write a better fate for his nephew and for the real Lily Calendar. It resulted in a libel in the Eternal Library.
And this single flawed truth weaponized a tormented Sashi Joseph Calendar, alias Mitchell Faber, against the author.
Second, the tragic but necessary beauty of Willy Patrick's existence. She was the fictional hero, the being Tim made.
She served as the protective shield for the true Lily Huntress, MD. And her final act was just fulfilling the purpose of her creation.
Walking into the real night room to close the dimensional wedge Tim had opened.
And third, the new mission that emerges from all the wreckage. Tim realizes he is Merlin Ledwith, old soldier, killer, magician.
And this isn't just a label. It's an acceptance of his complex, flawed, powerful identity. His new path is not escape, but necessary documentation.
He has to write the biography that Calendar demanded, following the Dirkman Joseph Calendar through the lost echoes of his Nuit somber profound.
Acknowledging his complex, monstrous reality. He has to write the messy, difficult truth, not the idealized fiction.
And this brings us back to Cyrax's final provocative warning, which I think sums up the entire philosophical conflict of the story.
Cyrax had warned Tim that he would behold an ideal, and you must pass it by.
And Tim encounters this ideal one last time. He sees April, his beloved, idealized, perpetually grieving sister, in a bookstore.
This is the perfect tragic symbol of his pain and his motivation.
But Tim, having completed his mission, recognizes that the ideal must be rejected.
The ideal, the flawless memory, the perfectly preserved innocence, the beautiful explanation for tragedy, it's seductive, but it ultimately hinders the necessary, messy work of reality.
The messy, unperfect world is the only place where true change and correction can actually occur.
And it's a powerful lesson for all of us, not just writers. When we are seeking knowledge or trying to enact change, or even when we're processing our own personal trauma.
How often do we fail to recognize and reject that beautiful, dangerous ideal, the perfect memory, the flawless solution, the hero who demands nothing?
That actually prevents us from engaging with the messy, difficult truth that is required for real, necessary progress.
The real work, as Tim discovers, is not in writing the perfect book, but in tackling the imperfect, difficult human biography of a monster.
And understanding that complexity is often the most profound kind of justice.
A compelling and challenging thought to leave you with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into reality, fiction, and the price of a perfect book.